Hello there, superstars! I'm Flintworth, and welcome back to another Creature Creator, the show where I help you build monsters and encounters inspired by your favorite characters. On today's episode, I'm answering the call of Fazbear Entertainment once more to bring to you a bunch of new animatronic encounters that will for sure leave your players feeling mangled.
0933, 632.
Make mommy proud, Jason.
Be my victim. Stop right there and surrender.
Ever since I started this series, there has been one clear reigning champion amongst my curations. The episode on the Fazbear gang from the first 5 Nights at Freddy's. Within the 2 months of its premiere, my subscribers doubled and the episode quickly became my most viewed video. And so it should be no surprise to you when I say message heard loud and clear of what you'll see more of on Creature Creator. And frankly, I'm all for fueling your love of Killer Animatronics. And we're going to be turning to 5 Nights at Freddy's 2 for inspiration here with its treasure trove of animatronics, which first premiered back in 2014. In all, we have the original withered versions of the Fazbear gang, their toy variants, Balloon Boy, the Mangle, and of course, the infamous puppet. Hick. Sorry, forgot to wind up the music box again. Let me get that real quick. Okay, where were we? Right, fun times with killer bots. Now, fortunately for us, much of what I have to discuss today was featured already in my first video. In fact, you'll be using my Stalker stat block for any withered or toy animatronics, while your Foxies will be operating underneath the runner stat block I made. Speaking of which, make sure to go back and check out my first Fnaf video if you haven't yet already. I go more in depth on how to get the most of my original stat blocks and the possible scenarios you can use with them. The only member of the band not joining us here today will be my master animatronics I originally designed. This will need to be done to better balance your encounters for the new challenges we'll be presenting to them in our scenarios today. You see, if we really want to create scenarios that emulate FNAF 2, we need to embrace its choice to remove strategies players had come to rely on in the first game. Unlike FNAF 2 though, we won't be able to achieve this by just removing some doors. We need to be a little bit more creative at our tables. You see, changing up the map works for 5 Nights at Freddy's 2 because at its core, it's a survival horror game, where the players are entirely dependent on their surroundings to survive. Whereas D&D is more of an action-adventure game with empowered heroes. So unless you plan on swapping to a system more optimized for horror, like the wonderful Kids on Bikes, we'll need to embrace the fact that our players will be more reliant on their own characters' skills and abilities when designing our encounters today. Which means we need to keep in mind that your heroes, with the right creative thinking and teamwork, will always have the potential to fend off your animatronics with their skills alone. And what's more, even if things start to look grim for their team, there is always the chance they can still turn the tide with the right spell or item at the last second. Now, one classic method we could use would be to simply bump up the number of animatronics your players have to deal with, which would be a great way to force them to spread out their abilities and spells, rather than pile them all on just a few unfortunate few. Which, to be fair, is something that would be in the spirit of FNAF 2, where the number of animatronics is increased from 5 to 11. But amongst those numbers are bots I would classify to have talents that go outside of the typical skill sets of your stalker or runner, where their focus is less on attack and more on providing support to their robot pals, turning the classic FNAF formula right on its head in the precise way we will also want to do in our own games. I'm of course talking about Balloon Boy, the Mangle, and the Puppet, or as I like to refer to them, the Blocker, the Maimer, and the Protector. Each of these monstrous machines are designed in their own way to either hinder or distract players from the more immediate dangers of the other bots. Like a bunch of spinning plates on stage, ignoring just one for too long could cause a whole night to come crashing down in a bloody disaster. And what I love from a game designer's perspective is how well these bots pair off with the original Fazbear gang. For instance, Balloon Boy, who had designed my blocker stat block around, prevents you from using your camera and lights, which is a wonderful trait to pair off with the stalkers I designed, who may need that extra cover to get close to their prey. Plus, there is the added bonus of watching your players get stuck staring at that little shit's creepy ass grin while they all scramble for cover. Backing up the little guy is my personal favorite, the Mangle. Not just because I find the bastard to be the creepiest looking bot of the bunch, but also because its creepiness is designed to hinder your players at almost every turn. For instance, its erratic attack patterns makes it difficult to predict where it's going to pop up next, forcing players to be in a constant lookout for its ugly mug. And what's worse, when it does actually show up, the static noise it emits makes it difficult to hear the other bots. With how well Mangle distracts players, I almost created an entire stack block that I called Restrainers. But then I realized how well this type of bot would pair off well with my original runner stats. I was inspired instead to create my Maimer stat block, which will provide you with the attacks and status effects needed to better hamper your characters in a roleplay setting. Running off these nefarious roadblocks will be our Protector Animatronics, inspired by the mysterious puppet hidden away in Fnaf 2's prize counter. With the Protector's stat block, I chose to take a slightly different approach, in that I was inspired more by the puppet's backstory than its game mechanics. In the events featured in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 and Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Simulator, we learned that the puppet was originally a security animatronic, designed to protect the children of the pizzeria from anyone who would do them harm. Unfortunately, the animatronic would ultimately fail in saving the lives of any of its charges. However, in the afterlife, there was still a chance to protect their souls, which the puppet promptly inserted into its various robot friends, resurrecting them all as the vengeful animatronics we all know and love. This act really intrigued me. Up until this point, all of the animatronics I designed for you for these videos were designed for just direct combat, with the idea that they might be destroyed and torn asunder by your players. Yet amongst these aggressive creatures, I never saw any reason to give any ability that allows them to repair or buff themselves with. That is, until I looked at the puppet. Kitting out the Protector stat block with a handful of defensive abilities and skills was just the element we needed here to complete our Fnaf 2 challenge. And don't worry, I made sure to include a game mechanic that allows your players to distract your protectors if they don't want to confront them themselves during the course of your games. While on that subject, let's talk about your encounters. Map-wise, you're going to want to set up similar to the ones I spoke of last time. So a dark claustrophobic building with a lot of long hallways and side rooms for your players or bots to hide away in. The only difference here though is that you're going to want to establish an open staging zone to funnel all of your action into, like a theater or a security office like you would see in Fnaf 2. You will want these kind of maps because our new animatronics work best when they're allowed to directly confront your players, which, depending on the level of your players, may require a little bit of creative thinking on your part to even the playing field. You could take a few cues from the game, like giving the players masks to hide themselves with. But if you think your players are up to a direct fight though, you're going to want to keep in mind which of your animatronics are meant for offense or defense. My personal recommendation would be to use any stalkers, runners, or maimers as your DPS, while using any blockers and protectors as your tanks and healers respectively. And if you're feeling really malicious, you could go ahead and use my master stat block to mix in your own Golden Freddy inspired boss. But that's just my opinion. Half the fun of setting up a sequel encounter is getting to continue the narrative of a favorite game. And whether you do so with the animatronics I created, which you can download copies of down in the description below, or with animatronics of your own design, make sure to honor the spirit of your prior sessions. That is, unless you think some things are best left forgotten.
I always come back.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching here till the end. It means so much to me to have you all popping in every 2 weeks to come hear what I have to say about the games we adore and love and how we can make them better for our players. If you have any suggestions or ideas for future videos, please let me know. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing. And if you don't, that's cool too. You're beautiful. I love you either way. Take care.